one point, Ari Schaffir was one of Hollywood's greatest comics, selling out arenas, making other legendary comics laugh, and receiving the Friends with Joe Rogan effect bump. However, as Ari's career has continued to stall in Hollywood, many are wondering if the 51-year-old comedian should call it quits for good. In this video, I will document Ari Shaffir's incredible and ultimately devastating journey throughout Hollywood. It's no secret that the Comedy Store in West Hollywood, California has birthed the careers of some of the entertainment industry's most famous and well-respected comedians. The long list includes Marc Maron, Tim Allen, Roseanne Barr, and many others. Headed by Mitzi Shore, the Comedy Club was the place to be in the late 90s to early 2010s if one was seeking fame and fortune in the world of Hollywood, and comedy in particular. Shaffir himself moved to LA in 1999, and after 4 grueling years of answering phones, doors, and other menial tasks, Shaffir was finally able to insert himself into the fray. Sometime during this period, Shaffir would also meet other well-respected and up-and-coming comedian at the time, Joseph R. Rogan, who would later play a pivotal role in his career. While Shaffir muddled about in comedy stores for years, it wasn't until September 28, 2004, that Shaffir's life would change forever. The Amazing Racist was a satirical comedy skit released by Ari Schaffir that featured some of the raunchiest and most obviously racist commentary at the time. Although comedy had larger boundaries back then, even for its standards, the skit was considered to be significantly controversial. Shaffir and his buddies recorded the skit in originally September 28, 2004, originally intending it for a mockumentary-style television series called National Lampoon's Lost Reality. Initially, the project did not see much success and was yet another failure in Shaffir's currently dismal career. However, after the videos were clipped and posted on the new internet site YouTube, Shaffir's segment had received newfound fame, racking up over 10 million views on YouTube. Although that number doesn't seem much now, consider that YouTube had just launched and was still in its infancy. Although the video brought fame to Shaffir, it did not bring fortune. As a result, Shaffir in some ways was left worse off than before. Although Shaffir's fortune did not change after Vince Offer had purchased the segment from Shaffir in 2013 for his new series Inappropriate Comedy, he did, in fact, receive his first major IMDb credit as co-writer of the film. The film, Inappropriate Comedy, also featured popular A-listers such as Lindsay Lohan, Adrien Brody, and Rob Schneider. Shaffir certainly didn't line his pockets with The Amazing Racist, but combined with his newfound relationship with budding comedian and podcaster Joe Rogan and the attention from the film, Shaffir was finally approached by Comedy Central to create his now most famous and financially lucrative show of all time, This Is Not Happening. The premise of the show was quite simple. Some of America's funniest comedians, such as Bobby Lee, Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, and Adam Carolla, would tell hilarious stories in front of a live audience. The show was quite popular because it benefited both the charismatic host Shaffir and the new comics looking for an early boost of visibility in their careers. Shaffir continued to host the show for 3 seasons, but in an unexpected move, Shaffir sold his next comedy special to Double Negative to Netflix. Once again a great financial move for Shaffir, Comedy Central was visibly upset. And after tension in the network came to a boil, Shaffir was eventually pushed out and ultimately lost control of the show. However, Ari continued to have a massively successful comedy career, and more importantly, began collaborating with his podcaster pal, Joseph Rogan. The relationship officially began on the mic when Shaffir was the third ever guest hosted on the podcast. After years and years from the Death Squad, Sober October, and now most recently Protect Our Parks, Shaffir has been featured on Joe Rogan's podcast and buttling around with other comedians for over 20 years at this point, consistently managing to be in Joe Rogan's infamous inner circle of 250 comedy assassins. While not benefiting him too much personally, the hundreds of appearances on JRE have certainly kept his name hot and visible in the entertainment industry, unlike many of his other comedian pals. Most notably, during this time in his career, Shaffir also released his special Jew, which is considered by many to be his magnum opus. After the high of Jew, Ari Schaffir was basking in the newfound glory of his Hollywood success. With one single success, all doors for Shaffir seemingly closed with Comedy Central and were swung wide open for Netflix. Seemingly, many would believe Shaffir at this point would continue to double down on his success. However, in classic Ari Schaffir fashion, he would unfortunately detract from his career and continue to bring down his image in the eyes of the public with a series of dangerous and potentially unsettling statements. But even before mentioning that, it is important to note that Ari Shaffir's next special, Ari Schaffir, America's Sweetheart, received a lukewarm response at best. While some fans enjoyed the special's lighter, more soft and introspective tone, others had felt that Shaffir had sold out and instead wanted to play ball with the advertisers. Likewise, although the racist and toilet humor Shaffir had been known for at this point continued, Shaffir notably toned it down in the special. Unfortunately, what was supposed to be a goodbye to the former edgy and inappropriate self that solidified Shaffir's early career, unfortunately became a consistent part of his act. However, the most damaging aspect of his career was not the special itself, but rather his future insidious comments and relationships with multiple high-profile celebrities. Most notably, Shaffir, who was at one point known for mocking celebrities during low times, overdoses, and deaths, sent a message to obsessed fans after the tragic death of Kobe Bryant in January of 2020. In a now deleted clip,
Kobe Bryant is a god. I'm here in Charlotte, the home of the team that originally drafted him. Maybe he wouldn't have raped that chick in Denver if he had stayed in Charlotte with the Hornets. But anyway, the point is, dude, it's like, hey guys, I know there's always a lot of hate, pain in the world, and there's always a bunch of terrible stories. And every once in a while, there's a good story. Good story comes out. The guy who got away with rape got his today.
Shaffir can be seen mocking Kobe Bryant, and he even claimed that the Lord did a good deed by taking him from the planet early. At first, fans were confused and were not sure if Ari was joking, but Shaffir put the final nail in the coffin when he doubled down on the comments, stating that Kobe was a POS who was enabled by Hollywood liberals who would look past his horrific treatment of women and SA allegations because of their fandom for the Los Angeles Lakers. Unfortunately, this was not the worst incident in Shaffir's sport career, as that title would be designated to his next victim, Bert Kreischer. After finishing episode on Shaffir's formerly successful podcast, Skeptic Tank, Bert was ready to unwind, drive home, and spend time with his wife and family. However, Shaffir, in Ari Schaffir fashion at this point, had other, more insidious plans. Shaffir, an admittedly lifetime drug user himself, slipped Bert drinks with one of the most dangerous drugs in the world, Molly, in an attempt, in Ari's words, to lighten the mood. Quickly, Kreischer realized something was off and had a full-blown panic attack in front of Ari. Ari finally confessed that he had laced Bert, but felt like he had overreacted and instead just needed to relax. Horrified after hearing of the event, Bert's wife and daughter blacklisted Shaffir from their home and ensured that even to this day, he is not allowed to come over. As mentioned before, Shaffir is currently still a host on the incredibly popular podcast Protect Our Parks. The show itself is essentially a session of debauchery as comedians drink booze, piss in bottles, in general engage in disgusting behavior. This childlike, cartoonish behavior, while disgusting to most, is one of the key drivers of its popularity. For Shaffir in particular, this is quite analogous to his actual career. Funny, but cartoonishly and buffoonishly so, often incorporating toilet humor, racism, and other forms of comedy that are often considered lowbrow or tactless to others. However, it's important to note that while Ari's comedy career is currently in shambles, as he continues to tour college bars, dive bars, and other low-quality venues, Ari has still avoided perhaps the most deadly label of all for stand-up comics, a hack. To put it simply, a hack is a comedian that uses recycled and overly used material to get cheap laughs from the crowd. To other comics, a hack is the highest insult one could have, as it indicates the comic in question does not respect the craft of comedy, a death sentence in the industry. Regardless of what one wants to say about Shaffir and his creepy behavior with both fans, other celebrities, and friends, and his at times genuinely antisocial behavior, his respect from other comedians as a practitioner of the craft, and his general witty/comedic personality ensure his fall from relevance is not quite there yet. This has been Viral Observer. Peace out.